The first sound wasn't a scream. It was the crack, wet, dull, final. Then silence, thick as fog over Victoria Park. I remember the smell before anything else, damp soil, iron, rain. Mother's hand reached for me once, trembling, not in anger this time, but in disbelief. Juliet stood behind me, her breath sharp, her eyes shining with something I didn't yet name. We had promised it would be quick. It wasn't. When it was done, the world went terribly still. Birds kept singing. I felt the weight of the brick still inside the stocking, slick and heavy, as if it had grown a heartbeat of its own. We left her there, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Every step away felt like dragging the crime behind us, one footprint at a time. We rehearsed the story the night before. She fell. She slipped on a rock. It was an accident. The words felt small in my mouth, but we spoke them until they sounded real. At the tea kiosk, I told the woman what we'd practiced. Juliet's voice trembled only once, when she said, "Poor Mrs. Rieper." But lies have a scent, and ours was still bleeding. Police found her before dusk. The stocking, the brick, the pattern of the blows, all too neat to be chaos. They asked questions I couldn't answer. Why so many wounds? Why no call for help? Why did the girls walk calmly back for tea? The inspector's eyes lingered too long on my hands. I tried to hold them still, but they kept shaking. Not from guilt, but from the echo of impact. Somewhere in that silence, I realized, we weren't fooling anyone. The walls of the station were pale, merciless things. They made our world, the one we'd built from paper kingdoms and secret names, look childish and broken. Juliet still believed in escape. She whispered that we'd run to America, write novels, live as queens of our own making. But the more she talked, the more I saw the edges of her voice fraying. They said we were inseparable. They never saw the distance growing between her certainty and my shaking. Every question they asked peeled something away, until all that remained was the truth we couldn't name. I started to dream of the moment again. Her eyes, Mother's eyes, not angry, not afraid, just knowing. Knowing exactly who I'd become. The world didn't end when she fell. It ended when I realized I didn't regret it. Not yet. That was the worst part. They brought us in separately. 2 chairs, 1 light, a recorder ticking like a heartbeat. At first, I said nothing. But silence is a cruel interrogator. It fills the room until you start to drown in it. When they showed me the brick, blood dried in the cracks, I broke. Not from fear, but from memory. I told them everything, how we planned it, how we thought killing her was the only way to stay together, how we believed the world was against us and only death could make it right. Juliet confessed too. Her words were colder, sharper. She said we were meant to do it, that it was logical, inevitable, almost divine. They called us mad. I called it devotion. But in that sterile room, devotion looked a lot like delusion, and delusion bled just the same. They said we'd stand trial as children, 16 and 15, too young to hang, too old to forget. The courtroom smelled of dust and ink. People stared like we were exhibits in a cage. Reporters scribbled faster than our hearts could beat. When the verdict came, guilty, Juliet didn't flinch. I looked at her, waiting for a glance, a word, something to remind me it had meant something. But her eyes were elsewhere, already building another world without me. They sentenced us to 5 years each. Justice, they called it. But it felt more like exile from a dream we'd built and destroyed together. Sometimes I think prison was the first real mercy I'd ever been shown. There, the silence didn't accuse, it just stayed. Years later, they let me out. The world had changed. I hadn't. People asked who I was. I told them another name. But names don't bury what memory refuses to release. I think of her sometimes, Mother, not as she was when she fell, but before that, when she still believed I was good. That belief was the last thing I killed. Juliet became someone else, somewhere far away. They say she writes stories now, about sin and salvation. I don't. I just live quietly, counting the years between that day and this one. I learned something the police never asked about. Guilt doesn't fade, it ferments. And when you taste it again, after all those years, it still burns the same. Justice was never about mercy. It was about remembering what we're capable of.